Every father has secrets, but his wasn't a hidden past or a secret identity. His secret was a second job, a hidden bank account, and a silent promise he'd made to his daughter the day she first picked up a paintbrush. Welcome to the Everyday Hero. Before we begin this story about how the greatest love is sometimes hidden in the most tired eyes and how the greatest sacrifices are made in silence, tell us in the comments what city you're joining us from. And if you believe a father's love is the greatest heroism of all, be sure to subscribe. For Clara, the world was made of colors. The walls of her room were covered in brushstrokes that spilled from the canvas. The whisper of a charcoal pencil was her favorite melody. She was a painter, only 18 years old, but every time she picked up a brush, she painted with the soul of a mature artist. But like any talent, hers needed the right materials, and that was the biggest problem in their house. Her father, Frank, was a worker at a metal factory. Every evening, he came home with the smell of metal dust clinging to him, and the full weight of the day settled on his shoulders. Clara loved her father, but she thought he didn't understand her. To her, her father's world was grey and monotonous, made of the noise of machines and the sweat of his brow. There was no sign that he understood her colourful world, her dreams. One evening, Clara excitedly finished a portrait she had been working on for days. It was the best work she had ever done. She waited for her father to come home. When Frank walked through the door, he was tired, as always. Clara ran to him, canvas in hand. "Dad, look, I finished it." Frank looked at the canvas in his daughter's hand with tired eyes. He paused for a moment, but it wasn't a pause of admiration. "It's nice," was all he said. His voice was muffled and distant. "Paint is expensive, Clara. Use it carefully." Those words stabbed Clara's heart like a knife. Her father didn't see her art, only the expense. She retreated to her room, disappointed. That night, she felt the distance between her and her father grow a little wider. To her, he was just a tired man who didn't support her dreams. But there was something Clara didn't know. Frank's day didn't end when his shift at the factory was over. It was only just beginning. Every evening at 8 o'clock, Frank would drive his old pickup truck to the parking garage of a large business center on the other side of town. He would take off his worker's overalls and change into the blue uniform of a janitor. He was the plaza's night cleaner, those same calloused hands that wrestled with heavy metal parts during the day spent the nights mopping miles of long corridors and emptying office trash cans. This was his secret, his second life that no one knew about. In the silence of the night, as he cleaned the gleaming, empty corridors of the plaza, he had only one thing on his mind: Clara. He remembered the day she painted for the first time, the sun that little girl had drawn on a piece of paper with her finger paints. That day, Frank had made a promise to himself. He would never let this talent fade, no matter the cost. Every month, he deposited every single penny he earned from that second job into an old bank passbook. On the cover, in his own handwriting, it said, "Clara's Dream Fund." That money wasn't for Clara's cheap paints. It was for the tuition for her biggest dream, the country's most prestigious Academy of Fine Arts. Months passed. Clara had built an invisible wall between herself and her father. She no longer showed him her paintings or talked about her dreams. She had retreated into her shell, working with her cheap materials as best she could. Her father's tired face and indifferent attitude had become an accepted reality for her. As the application deadlines for the art school approached, Clara had secretly lost hope. She had given up fighting for a dream her father would never support. One day, she was going through her father's closet, looking for old family photos. As she looked at pictures of her mother and herself as a child, she found a worn-out bank passbook tucked away in the pocket of an old work coat in the very back. Curious, she took it in her hand. She slowly opened it. On the first page, there was a note written in her father's shaky handwriting. Clara's Dream Fund. Clara's heart stopped for a moment. She began to turn the pages. On every page, there were small amounts deposited on regular dates. For years. The dates corresponded with the days her father had said he was working overtime or had come home the most exhausted. With tears in her eyes, Clara reached the last page. The total balance in the passbook had reached an incredible sum. It was exactly the amount of 1 year's tuition at the prestigious Fine Arts Academy she had been dreaming of. It was in that moment that all the pieces came together. Her father's exhaustion, his indifference, his complaints about the cost of paint. None of it was apathy. It was all a part of this silent sacrifice. Her father wasn't ignoring her dreams. On the contrary, he was sacrificing his own life, his sleep, his health, to make them come true. Clara collapsed on the floor, holding the passbook. She was overwhelmed with sobs, from the shame of having misunderstood her father for years and from the infinite love she felt for him. That night, Frank came home, long after midnight, with a weariness that seeped into his bones. When he opened the door, he found Clara sitting in the living room, in the dark. On the coffee table in front of her was the old bank passbook. Frank's secret was out. There was no shame, no anger on his face, only the weariness of years. He slowly sat down in the armchair opposite his daughter. Clara looked at her father with eyes red from crying. "Dad," she whispered, "what is this?" Frank looked at the passbook in his daughter's hand. He bowed his head. "I made you a promise, my girl," he said in a choked voice. "The day you first picked up that brush, I made a promise to myself." No other words were needed. Clara got up from her seat and threw her arms around her father's neck. And Frank, with his calloused, tired hands, held his daughter tightly. It was an embrace that melted years of misunderstanding, an embrace deeper than any words could express. From that day on, nothing was the same. Clara now saw the love behind every tired look from her father, the sacrifice behind every moment of his silence. With the cheap paints her father had bought, she began to create the most priceless works of art. Because she now knew that art wasn't just made with colors, but with love. A father's love is sometimes hidden in the quietest actions. It is hidden in the sleepless nights and tired mornings, unseen and unapplauded. Heroism is not always about wearing a cape and saving the world. Sometimes, heroism is in the calloused hands of a tired worker who has given up his own life for his child's dream. Thank you for watching The Everyday Hero. If you believe that the greatest heroes are the ones who make the quietest sacrifices, subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next story.